part of the agenda is not to allow you to have certain knowledge, So it's called restricted knowledge or suppressed knowledge. And they do this in order to accomplish one thing, white supremacy. In order for you to fall down on your knees and worship a cartoon picture of a Mzungu, in order for you to fall down on your knees and worship a statue of a Mzungu that you've been told is the representative of God, they have to do a lot of mental scrambling. They have to scramble your brain. They have to reduce your brain to porridge in order for you to accept that level of nonsense, you see. So this knowledge, so they suppress. But once you begin to understand history and you begin to understand what happened in history, what the names mean, what your language means, because your language carries a lot of history. Once you begin to make these connections, then you'll realize that there is no Mzungu God. God can never manifest as a Mzungu. I'm serious, can never manifest as these fake Indians, can never manifest as an Arab, can never manifest as a Chinese. It's literally impossible. It is not possible. It is impossible. I'm serious, it is not possible. Okay? You keep on asking why? Well, because if divinity is perfection, and if perfection is completion, there are very many perfect things that we see with our eyes on earth. There are very many things which are perfect. For example, for most of you, and I mean that sincerely, for most of you, your body is perfect. It has been perfectly designed to operate in this environment, totally, almost autonomously. Right? It is literally perfectly designed for this environment. It is complete. You breathe in the air, you breathe out, you can get food from the environment. You see, it's perfectly done. So that body is perfect. The way it is perfect. Does perfection mean that you have the strength of an elephant? No. Perfection simply means you're complete within yourself. That within the way you are, it is adequate and complete for you to be able to function as yourself. Why do you need the strength of an elephant? You don't need the strength of an elephant. Right? The amount of strength that has been put inside your body is enough for you to be able to operate comfortably. Isn't it? So that's what we mean. So once you understand that perfection in this situation is completion, it's complete, it's perfect, it's complete within its own role, then that is divine right there. That is divine, that is divinity right there. I'm not saying that you are gods. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that is divine right there. When you look at a vehicle is also perfect. I'm not saying it doesn't damage the environment. Don't miss my point. I'm saying it is perfect to the extent to which it does the job it was created to do. It was created to move you from point A to point B in a comfortable environment. You're seated comfortably. It has cool air or heat. You can control the climate. It moves forward, it moves backwards, it brakes, it has lights for you to see in the dark. So within its purpose, a car is perfect for its own purpose. Now, let's push this logic a little bit forward. Let's go to the next step. We've said a car is perfect for the purpose for which it was created. It works. Now, what happens when you take one wheel from the car? Is that a perfect car for its purpose? No. Why? Because it can't move properly. It can move, yes, it will move, but very, very improperly. And you'll be like, no, this is not the way it's supposed to move. Something is wrong with it. Right? Because it only has 3 wheels. It needs 4 wheels to be perfect for its job. Now, if you are to see a car, one day you are walking around in the bush, one day you're minding your own business in the bush, and you happen upon a car that has 3 wheels. And you have never seen a car before in your life. And you enter the car, the key is in the ignition, you switch it on. You do this and the car becomes alive and begins to run. And then you figure out how to make it move forward and backwards. When you're driving it, you'll be like, hey, no, something is wrong. This thing is not going well. This thing is not going well because it doesn't have 1 wheel. You're like, no, something is wrong. Yes, it's moving, but something is wrong with it. I can't figure out what's wrong with it. It's missing a wheel, so it's not moving particularly well. or maybe it has a puncture, so it's not moving well. But you know, so because you have intelligence, you know that something is missing. Kuna kasoro. There's something missing with this car. You can see what the maker was trying to do, but you can also recognize that something is wrong with it, even though you don't know exactly what's wrong with it. You know that something is wrong with it. So you know within yourself, this is not the way it's supposed to be originally. Because from the way it's built, it looks like it's supposed to be a moving machine. But something is missing. No. This cannot be its highest state. This cannot be its perfect state. This cannot be its complete state. Your intelligence will tell you that. And so you will know that the perfect car is like this, but it will have a bit more to make it move properly. And so one day, you find yourself in a showroom, and now you see a brand new car, and you're like, yes, I see what is missing with that one. Now I see that one was not the highest state of a car. This is the highest state of a car. It moves backwards, forwards, it has all the wheels, it has everything. Do you see what I'm saying? So let me ask you now, the prototype that the manufacturer used to make this perfect car that you've seen, how will it look like? Simple logic. How will it look like? How will it look like? It will look like the car in the showroom. It will not look like the car in the bush. Sindio, by simple logic. Because the car in the bush, iko na kasoro. It has missing pieces. So it is not the perfect archetype for a car. But the car in the showroom is the perfect archetype of a car. And the prototype is the model that they used to make this car in the showroom. So it will look like the car in the showroom, but not like the car in the bush. Are you following that logic? Now, the Bible says that we have prototypes. You read the Bible, right? It says we were created out of a model, that there was a prototype that was used to create us. Now, that prototype is what we are told are called angels. Because the Bible says, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Likeness means the shape, the mold itself, the shape. That is what likeness means. Image is the spirit part of you. Right? Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Now, image also means you stand in the mirror, and when you look at the mirror, it is exactly you. So the Bible is telling us that we were created from a divine prototype, a divine mold. We were molded from like a stamping machine, you know. They followed a mold that looks like them. Sindio? So we look like them, and we are supposed to represent them on this earth. Whoever the them is. The Bible says angels, other cultures have different names for the them. Right? Now, who was created? The mold, when they created using that mold, the prototype of people. Who are the people that came out of that prototype? It is African people. Is it not African people? Is it not African people? Let's use logic, right? It's African people that follow the divine prototype. If you follow the divine prototype, you end up with an African. You do not end up with an Indian. You do not end up with a Chinese. You do not end up with a Mzungu. You end up with an African. Why? Because an African is the only complete human being on the earth. What about these other people? These other people are mutations of us. Wako na kasoro. They have mistakes. For example, they don't have pineal glands. That's why they're full of hatred. That's why they find it so easy to hate people they've never met and to kill people they've never met. They are born without a pineal gland. I'm telling you. You go take a Mzungu, crack open his skull and look inside. There's no pineal gland. It's dead. Crack open the head of an African. has a fully alive pineal gland. The Mzungu say, oh, that's such a vestigial organ. Vestigial kitu gani? Just because you don't have it. Number two, they don't have melanin. And this is a solar planet. And they're running around with no melanin. What does that mean? They all get cancer. All sorts of skin cancer, I don't know what. They can't even walk in the sun before the sun is trying to kill them. So they are mutations. They have missing pieces within themselves. So they are not the divine prototype. Are you understanding? That's the logic. They are not the divine prototype. The divine prototype is an African. Therefore, the day you will see the prototype itself, it will look exactly like you. The day you will see an angel, if that's the word you want to use, you can go ahead and use it. It will look exactly like an African, because that is the divine prototype. Are you following the logic? You have the car with 3 wheels in the bush. You have the car in the showroom, and you have the prototype of the car. The prototype of the car will never look like the car in the bush that has 3 wheels, because it has missing pieces. The prototype is perfect. It has no missing pieces. You understand? And so the car in the showroom is a copy, is a carbon copy of the kind of the car that is the prototype that was used to make this kind of showroom. You understand? So that's the situation. So the African is the divine prototype. The Mzungu is like the car in the bush. The Indian is like the car in the bush. The Chinese is like the car in the bush. They have missing pieces. Wako na kasoro. They will never reflect the original prototype because they have missing pieces. If you want to see what is closest to the original prototype, it's the African. Which is why I'm telling you, an angel can never manifest as a Mzungu. Because that has too many missing pieces. You understand what I'm saying? Can never manifest as a Chinese. They have missing pieces. Are you following the logic? That's the logic of it. So never ever be deceived that I'm Mzungu, I don't know, is an angel. That's nonsense. It is impossible. It is not possible. And I'm just scratching the surface. I'm just using logic to show you how this thing, flows. But there is tremendous evidence, vast amount of evidence, that you'd be shocked that you've never been taught in church or in school, that reinforce this idea. First of all, I don't want to go really deep into this issue. I just wanted to touch just very lightly upon it. First of all, there is DNA evidence. DNA, when they did the Human Genome Project, what did they discover? They discovered that the original DNA on Earth is African DNA. I'm using the term African very loosely, by the way. So that the farther back you go, everyone becomes an African. So one day, there was this Chinese scientist, because they are racist and they really hate Africans. So they said, as we are special, we did not originate from Africans. Because we are so special and we are so different, we have our own evolutionary path. Our ancestors cannot be Africans. How dare you suggest that? So, that university, led by that Chinese scientist, decided to do a huge study. And they did a huge study. And that study involved 20,000 DNA samples. They went around the entire world picking up samples of DNA. And then they came back and they analyzed those samples, working backwards to see which, there's a way, like once you understand how the DNA science works, you'll see there's a way you can work backwards, because you can see the mutations as they happen. If you have all the samples, you can literally see the mutations as they happen over time. And you can even tell the point at which it happened. And once you know, and you can guess or you can estimate the age of someone's life. So you can give it a time, roughly. So you can figure this thing out. So they took all those 20,000 samples from, I think, all the tribes, all the peoples in all locations in the world. And they went back and they started working and doing research on that DNA. And the DNA led them straight back to Africa. They said, no, there has to be a mistake. They said, let's try again. They tried again. The DNA led them back to Africa. over every single time it led them back to Africa, until when they had to do their paper, because they had to produce a paper, they were forced to confess that all the DNA, every single bit of DNA on Earth today, traces back to Africa. You understand? So the original people were all Africans. There was no Mzungu, there was no Indian, there was no Chinese. But after a while, after time, something happened to change the DNA in order to make them look the way they look. Something happened. And now what happened is actually very interesting, and I don't talk about that, right now. Like, that's a whole different story, but it's very, very fascinating what happened and the amount of evidence that has been suppressed. But you can still find it if you know what you're looking for. So all I wanted to say is that there's tremendous actual scientific evidence to suggest that all the original inhabitants of Earth were African. So that when you're talking about 9,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, you're talking about Africans. We don't seem to find these other people in existence then. They appear to show up, 6,000 years ago. Very recent is when these other bloodlines begin to show up. And there is various reasons for that. There's, theories and arguments why it happened at that point, which is not the subject that we are discussing. So all I wanted to say is that divinity is necessarily black or African, if you like. Necessarily. That is the default state of everything. So if you're talking about all the ancient gods, quote unquote, or angels, or whatever name you want to use for the divine, for divinity, all the ancient cultures repeat the same thing. They say all the gods are black. Every single time they say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And they express all the gods as being black in all cultures at all times, with no exception. So don't believe that, I'm only giving this information so that you can understand why it is absurd for you to bow down and worship a cartoon picture of a Mzungu that you've been told represents God. It doesn't. You've been given a statue of a Mzungu, being lied to that this is a representation of God. That is not correct. That is not true. So you need to stand up. You need to stop bowing down. But the Ministry of Education suppresses this sort of information. Why? Because the guiding philosophy of the government in Kenya, in terms of education, is white supremacy. That is the philosophy of Kenyan education, that the Mzungu must remain God and you must remain the monkey. So the teacher tells you, you came from a monkey. Then the government teacher also tells you that the Mzungu is God. Think about that. It's the government that tells you these things. It is the government that reminds you that you came from a monkey. You ask them, who said so? They tell you the Mzungu said so. So that the Mzungu's opinion becomes truth in Kenya. So that becomes the truth for everyone, that you came from a monkey and the Mzungu is God. That is exactly opposite of history. Literally, it's the exact opposite of truth, because Africans don't have any monkey DNA. But all these other people who are non-Africans, guess what? They have monkey DNA. They have mouse DNA. They have wolf DNA. And they only use the word mouse and wolf because it sounds better than saying rat and dog. Yeah. So it is only Africans who have clean DNA. 100% Homo sapien sapien. The rest of these people, they are Homo sapien mixed with other things. They are not fully Homo sapien sapien. So whatever they're teaching in school is exactly upside down of what the truth is. Exactly upside down. Because the Ministry of Education wants you to bow down to the Mzungu and worship the Mzungu as God. Because the entire infrastructure of Kenya, the entire economic superstructure of Kenya is built upon, foreign domination. Which is why most Kenyans are okay when you hear that the government gave away the largest gold mine in Kenya. They gave it away to foreigners. Most of you are not bothered by it because the foreigners are God, isn't it? So it doesn't bother you. So if you can get a whole country to bow down to your image, well, you can get anything from them, isn't it? If they are bowing down to your image, you can get their gold, you can get their best land, you can control everything about them because they are worshiping you. And so as long as you're worshiping the foreigner, literally you're worshiping a cartoon picture of a Mzungu as God, a painting, a statue of a European as God, literally, then they can get anything within the economy. And that's the point. The point of all this is always money. It's never about anything else. It's about who is making money and who is not making money. Because if you are to be given the correct information about what happened in history, the truth of history, what happened on earth, how do we end up in this situation, like all of us? If you are to understand who everyone is, different bloodlines, where they come from, how the language is formed, where everything comes from, you'll discover that everything comes always from Africa. Everything. Not because Africa is special, but because the other groups of people literally did not exist beyond a certain point in time. And so once you get that proper knowledge of who you are and where you come from, you will not be able to bow down and worship a cartoon picture or a statue of a Mzungu. You simply won't. And the minute you refuse to bow down and worship the image of the European as God, and you stand up like a man, guess what? Their economy collapses. Why? Because you'll say, excuse me, why am I giving you my gold mine? Excuse me, why do you control the best land in my country? Excuse me, why do you have all my diamond mines? Excuse me. Excuse me. I want everything back. And that is what they will never allow to happen. It's about money. And so, because foreigners own everything in Africa, not only in Kenya, also in Africa, every gold mine is owned by foreigners, every diamond mine, every copper mine, iron ore mine, every single thing that God put in Africa for our benefit is owned by foreigners. And Africans are proud to hand over everything to foreigners because the God of the Africans is a European image. So as long as that is the situation, Africans will always remain poor because they will never take control over their resources, their God-given resources. And so Africans must be kept on their knees at all times, worshipping cartoon pictures of Europeans. Africans must be kept on their knees, believing that Arabic is the only language that God understands. That Africans have to be kept on their knees, having faith that it is Europeans and Arabs that control the route to heaven. Africans have to be kept on their knees, believing that Arabs and Europeans are gods on earth. And as long as you're on your knees, they will own everything. And so you must be kept on your knees because they must continue to own everything. Because the day you learn the truth, you will not bow down to them. You will not bow down to mutations of yourself. You will not bow down to the car that has only 3 wheels that is in the bush. While you are a complete car, as it were, the perfect prototype of the divine. And once you stand up, their little scam collapses. Their scam collapses. But unfortunately, most of you are loyal to their scam. So, we know that there is no hope. You know, as far as I'm concerned, there's no hope for Africans. No, there's I don't see a way out. I do not see a way out. I don't see I personally don't think it is possible to convince Africans to stop worshipping cartoon paintings and statues of Europeans. I think most of the population is too far gone. I don't think it is possible to convince Africans to stop believing that Arabs control the way to heaven. I also don't think it is possible to convince most Africans that the Arab desert is not holy land. I mean, how can a desert in which not even a single blade of grass grows, how can that be holy land? I thought a paradise was defined as a garden. I thought that's what all the books say, that God's favor put man, his creation, in a paradise, and the paradise was a garden, and the garden had many trees, many fruit trees. It was nice and cool, lots of rivers and lakes, pretty flowers. That's what I thought. That's supposed to be the Holy Land. At least that's what the books say. So how can it be that a desert in which there is no river, there is no lake, there is no grass, no flowers, no fruit trees, how can that end up being the Holy Land? How is it possible? I thought that the wilderness, a desert place, is a place that is under a curse. There is a curse upon the land, so the rain doesn't fall. I thought every single time the book says that the divine wanted to punish people for misbehaving, it would stop raining and the land would become cursed. Isn't it? So how can it be that what is defined as cursed never rains? To the Africans, someone on a camel is able to convince you that it's holy, and that your own land that is full of all manner of fruit, a stunning diversity of fruit trees, all manner of food, beautiful rivers, lakes, mountains, beautiful trees all over, fertile land. How can someone on a camel convince you that your land is not holy, but that his desert is holy? Well, that is the situation in Africa today. And it is impossible to convince a grown African man that his own land is holy and that the Arab man desert is not holy. It is not possible to convince an African. So, which speaks volumes to the intellectual depth of most, grown African men. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement, and together let us keep poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.